Why don't I just fire Mueller? Well, I think it's a disgrace what's going on. We'll see what happens. But I think it's really a sad situation when you look at what happened. And many people have said you should fire him. Again, they found nothing. And in finding nothing, that's a big statement.
Many of those people, by the way, saying it on Fox News. We'll get to that in a second. But the strongest comments yet from the president regarding Mueller. Of course, Democrats warning the president, leave him alone. Got also Republicans as well on the Hill saying the same thing. They want him to finish his probe. You got Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa, chair of the Judiciary. He says it would be, quote, suicide for the president to fire Mueller. Senator John Cornyn of Texas, the majority whip, says it would be a mistake for Trump to have Mueller removed. Let me bring in ABC News political director Rick Klein to take a look at the politics of it all. Rick, let's look at the amazing day that was yesterday and put it into some of the political context, obviously in a midterm election year. Do you have any indication there's any interest or willingness on the Hill to come up with legislation that would in effect protect Mueller and his investigation?
There's definitely interest in it, but the concerns, I think, are twofold. One is Republicans are a little bit hesitant to act because they feel like they have gotten assurances from the president privately that he wouldn't fire Mueller, and therefore they don't want to go out of their way to try to signal some concern over that. The second concern is related to that, which is that he might veto that legislation. There's no guarantee that you can do anything about it. So I think Democrats would support that in a second. The question is Republicans, and I think so far they continue to keep it at bay, but the more he muses openly about firing Robert Mueller, it may just be too much for them to handle. I have no doubt that if he were to get fired, there would be very quick action, even by Republicans, to try to make sure that investigation stays intact.
Well, let's go down the next logical questions, whether it be Mueller, whether it be Sessions, whether it be Rosenstein. What are you hearing on the Hill as to which might be the next person that could fall? And then, as you said, the legislative reaction to it.
There's a lot of concern right now about Rod Rosenstein's job. He is the man who oversees Robert Mueller because Jeff Sessions recused himself. He, of course, is wrapped up in various aspects potentially of what the investigation could look like. And we're told by Michael Cohen's attorney that it was Rosenstein who signed off on the request from Mueller's team to refer this information on to the district attorney in Manhattan that has now resulted in those search warrants being executed. So there's already been a lot of questions about, is Rosenstein letting Mueller get away with too much? Is he giving him too long of a leash? Now it seems to be allowing a different branch of an investigation to pop up. So a lot of questions about his role in this that you're starting to hear from conservative commentators, and I think you'll start to hear the president, as he's talked about it publicly, concerned about Mueller and the oversight Mueller receives via Rosenstein.
So let's say he makes a move on one of those three, Rick. What then would Congress do if the president decided to fire him as a consequence of what we saw yesterday?
Well, intriguingly, a lot of this stuff is wrapped up together. The president can't fire Robert Mueller by himself. He would have to have Rod Rosenstein do it. So the circumstance that's played out often would be if he wanted to fire Mueller and Rosenstein said no, then he fires Rosenstein and finds someone who would do it. Very reminiscent of what Richard Nixon went to in the last throes of the Watergate investigation, the so-called Saturday Night Massacre. So a lot of it would be reliving history. I think it would depend on the particular circumstances. I think if he were to fire, say, Jeff Sessions, the question immediately becomes, who is his attorney general? Guess who takes over? Rod Rosenstein, until you can get someone confirmed, and good luck with that. So the biggest thing that's arguing for stability right now, well, beyond Trump allies saying it would be a disaster to fire any of these individuals, the biggest thing may be that you're not guaranteed a better outcome on the back end. I
swear 1 week, Rick, we're going to actually be able to have a conversation where we don't use the word chaos. I'm still waiting for it, but I swear 1 week it will happen.
Hey, Richard, you won't have me on that week.
No,
it was too boring.
It's amazing what we've gotten used to. Rick, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
All right, let's bring in our panel. Joe Pinion, a Republican strategist and GOP candidate for the New York State Assembly, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. All right, guys. I think the president is going to move to fire Mueller. And I come to that conclusion because there had to be, Mueller had to know there was really damning stuff and had to present it to a judge to okay a raid of the home, the office, as well as the hotel. And this thing's about to expand. Cohen's been his personal attorney for more than 20-something years. He calls himself the Donovan here, from the Showtime show here as a fixer here. And he's also got a CYA file somewhere, okay? My point is, if he's going to do it, he's going to do it sooner than later. And I think he'll always have regret in his mind that he let this thing continue to its inevitable conclusion. Why not take a shot now? If he does that, what do we think happens on Capitol Hill?
I mean, it'd be an unmitigated disaster. I think that I'm of the frame of mind the same as Lindsey Graham, that it would be the beginning of the end of his presidency. I think that realistically, when you look at what transpired...
You think there's 20 Republicans on Capitol Hill who would call it a constitutional crisis and move for impeachment proceedings?
I think if you look at the chain of events that would have to actually transpire for us to get to the point where he would actually be able to get rid of Mueller,
yeah.
I think that it is the chain of events that
Although he argues, Joe, that and you saw that from Sarah Huckabee Sanders, that he has the direct right not to have to go through, as Rick laid out here, that you have to do 3 steps to get one. He believes that he can do it directly.
He would be the only one who believes that.
But has that stopped him before?
No, but then you would get an immediate court case going, and the firing may very well get blocked. Look, I actually don't think he's going to fire Mueller because, if Cohen is the red line, well, that cat's already out of the bag. That information is now in the hands of the Southern District, so there's not a lot he can do to protect that at that point. As for what would happen if he does fire Mueller, I'm sad to say I think the answer is absolutely nothing. I mean, I think there'll be a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. You showed Cornyn, you showed Grassley, you showed a couple of other people up there, but nobody is making a move to actually pursue the legislation or advance the legislation that would protect Mueller. They're just saying that they don't think he would make a move on him. McConnell got the question today and said he's not going to do anything about it either because he doesn't think it's going to happen. So what happens if Trump does fire Mueller? I think Republicans will, they'll make some nice speeches and say they just agree with it and nothing will happen.
The second question I wanted to ask you guys was, it wasn't accidental when the president said, people are saying I should fire Mueller. Well, who do we think those people are? I say this with certainty, not a think. President Trump's favorite channel, you know who they are, our friends over at Fox. They want the president to can Mueller. And if you think that I'm reading between the lines here, take a look.
This is now a man that has to be brought under control, it would seem to me. Frankly, I can't imagine, because, each of us has to come to terms with our own heart and conscience. I would fire the SOB in 3 seconds if
I know you would. You had a raid at the president's attorney's office to get to the documents that many people thought violated attorney-client privilege.
Now, shortly after that aired, shockingly, the president had something to say, and of course he said it via tweet. Attorney-client privilege is dead. Literally minutes after that rocket scientist on Fox and Friends said the following.
And I think that gives you an idea that Trump feels like nothing would happen if he did fire Mueller because he's got cover from Fox News. So how many Republicans who are on the ballot this fall are really going to put their head in the lion's mouth and go against Fox News? Maybe you can stand up to some local commentary here and there, but if Fox News is singling you out as the Republican that's pushing back too far, too hard?
But let's separate this, Joe. Do you imagine if President X, the Democrat, responded in real time to Morning Joe every morning or something else and was getting his policy directives from there? We are getting reports that the president, forget about putting on the phone in front of everyone in the office, Hannity or Dobbs or whatever, he values what they say on Fox more than his own advisors, policies advisors whose lifetimes theoretically and expertise is in the fields that they're advising him on, whether it be Syria, whether it be the economy, whatever the case may be. Think about what I'm saying. He doesn't read briefings, he watches Fox, and that's where he bases his policy and his positions off of. I don't think he's wrong, and that scares me. No offense.
I mean, I think the paradigm of politics in this nation has shifted. I made the remark yesterday. I turned on the television and there was Larry Kudlow talking about economic policy. And for a split second, you forget that he's actually speaking on behalf of the White House. It was almost as if I was watching a CNBC segment, except he was on another network. So, the nature of how we discuss policy, the nature of how policy winds its way through the system and ends up on pieces of paper that legislate our lives has changed. Having said that, again, I think that we need to understand that, at least people on both sides of the aisle, that the system actually worked. Right? That we have a situation here where, again, as much as people on Fox, as much as the president wants to talk about this,
exactly.
racism.
And you're the perfect person I want to ask this to, because here you are running for public office.
Correct.
Okay. And knowing what the public thinks of elected officials, whether they're for statewide office, federal office, whatever the case may be, or even local office, this president has made everything in the last 15 months and in the year before then in the campaign all about himself. Now, and if you have any doubt about this, I suggest you just turn on the TV one day and you're going to know what I'm talking about. But to me, if they just listened to yesterday afternoon, you can't trust the Justice Department. The rule of law is now gone. This is all about partisanship, people looking at him. And that clearly, in his view, all politics is transactional. People do things as to what's going to help them. He couldn't understand a concept of somebody saying, no, you have to be held to account for what you've done. He went to Comey and said, well, you're the FBI director, I'm the president, you owe me loyalty. You got to treat me with kid gloves here because I'm the president. He basically said, in so many words, the same exact thing to his attorney general, to say, you can't recuse yourself, you got to look out for me. Are you worried? Forget that you're running as a Republican, I don't care. That the damage after all this is, what little faith we have in our public institutions will be marginalized even more because he says, in effect, everybody looks out for number one here. I'm just honest enough to admit it.
Well, I mean, I think that the rise of tribalism has led to the fact that intellectual integrity in our public discourse has broken down. I think that, to me, if you're a person that supports the president, you should arrive at the conclusion that if you're coming from the standpoint that the president has done nothing wrong, that people are actually trying to protect him. Rosen is someone that he has actually appointed. You're talking about individuals in the Southern District are people that he has appointed. These are individuals who are Trump people. If they discovered information that says that somehow the president's attorney is acting in a manner that is unlawful, it is in the best interest of the office of the presidency and of Donald Trump himself to actually go about making sure that that is discovered. Even if, particularly again, if
I agree with you.
That
really, because I'm writing down, Andrew, with what happened yesterday on how the process works that Joe just said, and also what the president said, did you have more faith at the end of the day last night that the American way, the rule of law, our process can survive anything? Or were you more concerned that, my God, authoritarianism or whatever else, I could see it in my lifetime?
I'm confident in our court system. I'm confident in justice being done. But our politics, I'm gravely worried about because I don't see what gets us back to normal.
Fair. Coming up next, the other big story today, Mark Zuckerberg, he put a suit on, actually got a haircut, and he headed up to Capitol Hill for a grilling, kind of, by the Senate. We're going to show you how he responded and what he's doing about the Facebook privacy and data scandal.